Welcome to Tactical Reviews, and in this video we're going to be taking a detailed look at the Jaques from MKM, a slip joint folder. This particular knife has no packaging for us to look at first because it's a show knife. This was at IWA 2025, not sure before that. It also means that when we come in for a detailed close-ups you might see the odd knock or mark, and also when we do the edge sharpness, this knife has been handled by an unknown number of people. So what we're going to be doing is just running through all of the features. Just taking in then an overall of this MKM Jaques. There are a number of versions with different handle material. Here we have the gold fleck fat carbon. The construction of the knife, the bolsters, but also continuing as one-piece liners, are in titanium. And then we have a polished steel spring, a single position wire pocket clip. It's in the tip-up position, and this, as you see, the slip joint action with a half stop. And the Jaques has a MagnaCut blade with a Wharncliffe style. Although there's a nail nick, I think for me there's enough blade that I would just pinch grip to open that. In terms of size, it's a very easily pocketable size, but still giving you a good size blade to use. Very useful. And then in terms of size in the hand, though what I'm not quite sure if this is intended as a finger grip, because it works extremely well on my third finger, or if it is meant to be for gripping the blade, which it works for perfectly. Either way, it actually is extremely comfortable and useful and provides a lot of stability. So we do have a first finger grip groove here. I'd call that third finger grip groove, and that's our extremely useful Wharncliffe blade. So let's come in and really get a close look. So I think I'm now sensibly as close in as I can get with my camera setup here. Really seeing this gold fat carbon for the handles. Very nicely finished pivot with a little decorative surround inside the titanium, which you can see here continues as a single piece, the bolster and the liner. That beautifully polished back spring. And then on the side with the clip. So you could do away with a clip, but it is a single position. You see there isn't an equivalent, but it keeps the line really clean. And we do have at the end of the back spring and into the beginning of the blade a couple of bits of jimping for some grip. You might be pushing down on. You can just see there what I believe these are some phosphor bronze washers. Let's see the Wharncliffe blade. And to the other side. So just to say again, that's a MagnaCut blade. So that half stop snap. And there we are. So what we're going to do now is move on to the detailed technical measurements. So I'm just going to show something I normally don't show in the videos. I can't really do the measurement properly while it's under camera, but with a slip joint, one of those important features is how firmly the blade is held in place. And that is represented in the technical measurements that will be in the full review of an opening and closing torque. And when you have a slip joint with a half stop position, what you also have is the initial open to half stop, and then from half stop to fully open, and again reversing that from fully open to half stop and then to closed. And what I've got here is the first part I do with this measurement, where I have a force meter which measures in newtons, and the setup with the knife is allowing me to apply force at the correct distance from the pivot, which then allows me to create a torque measurement. So I have a gauge set to 50 millimeters and measuring from the center of the pivot to the attachment point, and I just use masking tape here. It usually requires a couple of layers to prevent tearing. And then what I do is I draw a line which is effectively a curve. There's a good reason for that. The line exactly at the point where it touches the blade, I will put a little anvil. I haven't got that to hand. It's a little point adapter that fits on this, because this force adapter works on both tension and compression. So here I'm on the opening forces, so I've got the tension hook on it, and I then punch a hole to attach the hook somewhere along the line that I've drawn, with making sure that that's always the same distance from the pivot. Now I've got a reading sitting here from those that I've just done. I'll just reset that, and it automatically locks here. If I attempt to show how I'm doing this measurement, as I say, this is not correct, this is not absolutely accurate, but just thought I would include this. The other factor here is the line of force. So what I actually need to do is make sure that at all times the force meter is pulling at 90 degrees to the line from the pivot to where I've got the force meter attached. And that effectively means that as I pull this, obviously I do repeated measurements because the accuracy is, you know, we're talking about estimates here, and what it means is in effect I have to rotate the force meter in an arc to keep that distance correct. So this is just very, very rough for the video. So reset the needle, then I'd have the knife clamped or firmly on a bench, and then keeping that position, so start to turn the meter, and it will go through a peak which this needle latches at, and here on this scale the major mark there is 7.5, then each division is 0.25 newtons. Let's say we've gone 4 past that, which means we're on 8.5 newtons for the half stop opening force. That is not yet calculated into torque, I'll only do that later. If I now reset, although in this case it's going to be a higher reading anyway, now to get to the full opening, and here if I put my finger here I'm actually squishing the back spring, so I really need to avoid doing that. And again, for the video I'm doing this at arm's length, this is not good, but just to show, I then continue the opening, and in fact you can already see the reading has gone above the previous half stop reading, and now we've gone to 10 newtons there, and it would be 12.5 to that line, but it's 1 division under, so that is 12.25 newtons, so slightly more for the second part of the movement from the half stop to full. I would expect this to be similarly reflected for the closing. The closing is a lot more dangerous for me to demonstrate in this way. Oh, of course, silly me. Here's the closing, the anvil for the closing force, and in fact let's just unhook things and show you. But because I'm closing the blade and I'm not being able to just push and hold it on a surface, it's not going to be something I'm going to properly demonstrate. But turning round, I've got my faint pencil line, you might not be able to see it clearly, and I'll then apply the anvil to that same position and repeat the movement in an arc to take readings of the closing torque to half stop and fully. So that's something I normally don't show because I have to do this under different conditions, but I just thought I would include it here. And in this section we're going to go through the detailed technical measurements for the MKM Jaques folder, starting with the weight, so 64.3 grams, folded length, we have no case, sheath or anything else to be concerned about. We have 9.2 centimeters. The folded width, so here, you know, it's a really nice blade, easy to hold, makes it a little bit wider than some, so we have 31.3 millimeters wide. Overall length opened. And that gives us 16.2 centimeters. with a blade length from the front of the handle. It gives us, well, it's just under 7 centimeters. This is not precise enough, this ruler. It's more or less 69.5 millimeters, but for the sake of this, I'm going to say 7 centimeters blade length. Handle thickness, just fold that first. Have this slight feature where the fixings are what give us our increased width. So in fact the pivot is one of the wider points, where the clip is gives another. So what I record in the table, I'll decide later actually, probably be across the handle what screws here, but I'm going to measure dead across the handle, which is 10 millimeters. Across the handle fixing screws gives us 10.6 millimeters. Across the pivot, and we get 11.6 centimeters, and across the clip that you could remove is 15.6. So handle depth with the knife open, and this is the widest point, 23.7, but I'm also going to take this point because I won't take into account a grip hook. So let's consider this like a palm swell, and we have 22.2 millimeters. This next measurement is something that's sort of come about with UK law, and with this particular blade design, it is a dead straight cutting edge, but we have a peculiarity where, especially for, you know, a drop point, whatever, where there's a curve to the edge, of rolling the cutting edge, not the blade length, but actually from where it's sharp, to give us a value for the legality. So here we have 62 millimeters for the cutting edge length. That is something that I only measure for a UK EDC legal, which is a slip joint folder or non-locking folder with a cutting edge less than 3 inches, and in this case that's easily okay. Here I actually have a mark for the UK limit, and even without coming in close, it's well off or well within. Okay, so then we have the balance point. So it's well within the handle, and the balance point is 10.4 centimeters from the tip. Blade thickness. The blade thickness is 2.1 millimeters. This is a flat grind. Now with this blade having quite a varying profile along it, I will take it across this widest part. And with the swedge we get a tiny little section that's not the the main grind, whereas as you come further along the blade, actually it's a full flat. I will classify this as a full flat, but for these measurements we have 19.6 millimeters for the blade depth, and at that position the grind length is 18.1 millimeters. The primary bevel angle should be quite nice and fine on this blade. And we have 6 degrees and 8 minutes. 6 degrees 8 minutes for the primary bevel angle. Laser edge bevel protractor now, which I can't show, which is a pity I can't show actually, because this is a very nice clean edge. So the right hand factory edge bevel is at 18 degrees and the left is at 20 degrees. In fact, correction, the right hand is at 19 degrees and the left at 20 degrees. So point angle. So point angle is 45 degrees. Okay, thickness behind the edge. Going to remeasure just to make sure I hit the right spot. So it's currently 0.46 millimeters. It's very, very fine. Just actually, might have been a bit low. So 0.53 millimeters for thickness behind the edge. In terms of rake, it may be just a very, very fine. So I'm going along the center of the handle. Yeah, so we've got 4 degrees of rake. Almost doesn't look like it because we have almost a flat back, but it isn't quite with the blade. And taking that center line, it does extend off slightly from the center of the blade. So 4 degrees rake. And as mentioned right at the start of this video, this particular knife has been through at least one major exhibition show, the IWA 2025. So the factory edge condition may not be all that good, but perhaps it is. Anyway, we'll see what it is as I have it here. So center sharpness 220 grams. Heel sharpness 216 grams. And the tip, 231 grams. So thank you for joining me at this detailed look at the MKM Jaques, and remember, get informed, be prepared, stay sharp.